Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Good. Pretty good. Better.
Better. That's good.
How are things?
Yeah. All right. So waking up.
Yeah, but
Lots on the list this morning. Haven't even
oh my
put my
god,
notes in
so
yet.
many things.
Won't bother. Looks good.
No room. Sorry.
No room. I'm sorry. I'm a bit croaky this morning. A little bit sick, but
A little
just
bit too.
extra texture. Extra texture.
Extra. Yeah.
Yeah. What's news, Putty Cat?
Let's. Oh god. Yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts. I guess. I feel like I got my ass absolutely kicked by this mill job shop part. 2 parts we made mostly last week, I guess, but I estimated roughly 9 to 10 hours worth of work for us. Most of that machining time, setups. Each part had 3 ops, aluminum parts. Both needed soft jaws for 2 of the ops. And I looked at them and I didn't think they were that hard. I knew that they would take soft jaws, and I didn't really have a ton of experience making them. Like a couple of our parts use, our own products use soft jaws. You know, everything with a product, you dial it in and then just use it, and you take the time to do it right once. But it feels like with job shop work, you just race. Like I'm always on a race to I gotta get this done fast.
How many parts?
24 of each, so 48.
48 parts. Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not small, I suppose. It's almost a production run. And I just I don't even know. I mean, I thought about it a lot since, but I spent an enormous amount of time on it. I worked all weekend, which kind of led into some of the thoughts later with this interview with Carl Bass and on the new podcast that Pete and M do that I shared with you.
Yeah.
Just in general about how job shop works for us and others, and the things that are really inefficient and how we need to automate everything, and thinking about going to IMTS. So my mind is just kind of reeling in 16 different ways, more than normal.
Was when you
and so good morning.
Good morning. When you got that quote request, what did you think when you looked at those parts? Because when I looked at those parts, I thought, beep, no.
Yeah,
run. I mean, I don't have a mill, but
yeah, you thought they were tough right away, and I was like, you have better instinct than I do, apparently.
Maybe. No, not necessarily. I don't know. They looked challenging, but maybe I was hearing you being challenged by them, so it was in the context of that. So,
right. Being a non-trained CNC machinist coming from Woodworld, I always love a project where it's kind of a functional mill part that doesn't have high tolerance requirements. And this client, who I've loved working with, because they usually have a decent part count, and it's they're a little challenging usually, but ultimately they're never the worst, and I don't have some crazy roughness. I don't even take those jobs usually. I don't know how to qualify, what's the roughness? I don't have a profilometer or, any kind of crazy measuring tools. So it's we do pretty straightforward projects. And so I thought, well, there's a couple tricky things to this, but I think I can nail those in the first ops. But what killed me on those parts is they each have a feature at the top that's a little bit different. It's, a kind of a forked version, and then one was a rod, and they intersect as a joint. And the backside of them is a tube, a cylinder that's roughly half an inch, 12 mil, a little more than that. And the thing that killed me wasn't the forked part or any of the first op, really. It was the second side trying to machine those damn tubes, because they were 2-ish inches long, and everything I tried to do chattered like mad on that finished tube. And I spent so much time on that and the soft jaws, and just in general strategizing how to do it, that I don't know who really wants to listen to this, but it's just mind boggled at how off I was on that project.
What would you do differently next time?
I don't know. I've talked to Dylan a lot since. He kind of helped me through some of my struggles of not understanding what I was doing wrong with Softjaws. And he showed me some of his setups. And I think one of the things is we'll probably switch out. We have a pretty basic Kurt vise, and he was sharing how he uses Carve Smart jaws, which are pretty popular. I knew a little bit about them, but they repeat, so you can change them in and out and not have to indicate in an offset again, which is a huge time savings. We're also still, I think one of our struggles is when I do a job shop job, we just use the one vise. And so everything's got to happen within that vise.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to try to change to, the dream would be now maybe some 0 point, sexy, easy to drop in and out kind of things. Because we kind of already have that with the Pearson palette, but I just have this one kind of dumb 6-inch vise, and it doesn't have, it's I didn't know what I didn't know for a long time about what makes this efficient.
Oh, sure,
and I think some of that, Dylan's really helped me think through that, how to make more repeatable things, quick setups.
So isn't your Pearson palette 0 point though? Or does that rely on the vise?
Basically, it is, but what goes on it then is a vise. And the vise...
Gotcha.
I don't trust the modeling for it to be super accurate and every setup is different on that vise. It's not pretty center of the vise. A lot of one part at a time running for 48 parts, which just felt stupid the whole time, but I couldn't figure out how to do it better in the work holding I had available. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel better about it, but I guess I just needed to vent my frustration with my own status of machine, I guess.
But it does lead nicely into the Carl Bass interview.
It does.
Because he's saying that Cam's going to be automated in no time. And
right.
What, the reality of the sort of fuckery of doing a job like that, how realistic do you think it is to actually automate setups and Cam? Because they have to meet the real world in the machine and your setup and people's distinct kit at some point, right? How's that going to work in your mind?
Right. For mill parts, my two worlds are mill parts and router parts. It feels like both of them have their own challenges, but then their own simplicities, and it's so easy in my mind to do analysis and programming for a single part. I'm not saying that router parts are hard to make. That's not the point. It's just in terms of analyzing, quoting, producing toolpaths for when you're just dealing with one geometry that it just feels like there's an ease in that. And for example, today, you haven't heard about toolpath.com has a beta.
Yeah, right.
And they have just released an update today. It's just all coming together for me in terms of my frustrations, but then also a solution is they were previously allowing you to analyze and kind of give a rough estimate of cost and then how many setups and tooling and even operations, but it was kind of stuck in their web browser, at least from my perspective of use. But today they just released so that you can jump between and pull a file down from their cloud tool to Fusion with all of the operations in it already.
Not really. Wow.
And that can be your own tooling or their tooling. You can also pull a file from Fusion back up to there. You can also forward an email with a step file in it and it'll generate this stuff. So tying that all together, I went from God, I'm frustrated, and listening to, Carl and Pete and all those guys on this podcast will share, which I highly recommend. It's a new podcast by Pete. I don't know how to say it. Oxenham? Is that his last name?
Not sure.
I believe. Oxenham.
I just followed the link you sent
Pete's a great guy. I met him at Fusion event last year. He does chatter.dev. I think we've talked about it before.
Right. He's the chatter guy. Cool.
Right.
Cool.
And they started a podcast in this really cool format where they talk about software development, but also like manufacturing and then making as kind of a combination of things. And so they interviewed Carl Bass. He's the ex-CEO of Autodesk, and he kind of led them through bringing Revit in and kind of popularizing that in the building industry. And then they consider him basically the Fusion godfather. He was the CEO that pushed forth and went from, oh, we have Inventor, but it's not really going to be top dog. How do we make this a contemporary tool and help start and make Fusion what it is, including why we have the Mac version, which he explains on the podcast, which is amazing. And it's just really good. It's a pretty long interview, but there's questions from like an audience perspective, which I thought was really cool, that they could pull in instant like live listeners in like a streaming setting. And so there's really good questions and dialogue between everybody. And it was basically this like both kick in the groin, but also like eye-opener confirmation of a lot of my like ponderings on how important like automating these kind of things and instant quoting and all of those things kind of all at once.
Yeah.
Good timing for me.
Yeah, for me, it brought up all the same old themes of, how quickly can you quote job shop work, your time invested in that versus, what percentage of that are you going to win? And, all the systems that you and I have sort of tried to build internally for ourselves to make those processes more efficient. It reminded me of my old Grasshopper quoting patch of like,
you still use that, don't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was replaced by Airtable, but yeah, I don't know. It's a really good podcast. Yeah, I would recommend going off and listening to that as well. Carl sounds like a great dude.
Yeah, I very vaguely met him at the Fusion Academy in Portland. I'm sure he doesn't remember me at all, but I remember sitting at a table with him and being a little in awe. I think one of the things I thought I wanted to bring to this discussion, because I don't want to just repeat all of what they said, but it was a really good conversation. I mean, it talked about like why drawings are completely useless in today's world. And the best line of that conversation was, Carl said, somebody at one point said at Autodesk when they were thinking about putting drawings into Fusion was, it's like if you feed your dog, then pick up the shit and try to figure out what you fed your dog. It's like how drawings and models work. It's like, you don't need the drawing to start. You model it, you make a drawing, and then you hand both of those things to like a vendor, and the model's perfect, but then we have to go look back at what the tolerances can be, basically, in a, as he said, like a hieroglyphic form we've created that most people have to learn and understand to properly read, so that you don't get screwed on quoting a job and all those things. And that was nice. I really enjoyed that piece. And then
sidelines at that point, I was like, yes, down with the drawings.
I know, it was really, by that point, I was so in the bag of all the things they were talking about. I was like finishing a cabinet in my house, and I was like, God, this is just so good.
Yeah.
I think the thing that killed me the most we've talked about at length here, I just reiterated it with Ricky again, was if we're going to keep doing job shop work, we absolutely cannot keep quoting work and receiving files and communicating about them as we do. And part of that challenge that I don't know how to handle at this point, because I feel like a lot of this conversation on that show was about software solving these problems, and we have some of those tools like paperless parts and now toolpath.com. And I've heard word that Toolpath may someday handle router nested sheet part kind of things, but that's not soon. Is how do you deal with an automated quoting solution in nested parts, or what we do, router parts, woods? There's so many things that I feel like end up being this long back and forth conversation that kills me in terms of like efficiency. I don't know what to think about that.
I'm just thinking about the job shop work that I've quoted recently, and I'm trying to quote less and less of it. So I'm saying no to pretty much all low value job shop work. But the stuff that I have quoted, there's pretty much every inquiry. There's been just a lot of education because people typically don't really know how it works or what's involved. And I'll do, like I did one yesterday, downloaded the file from the email, opened it in Rhino and turned on Loom and did like a 2-minute file review for the guy of like, cool, that's fine. This can do that. Can't hit that profile. Can't hit that edge. You're going to have to do that in post processing, blah, 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 blah. Which is all very well. You know, there's now like 6 questions to answer as a follow-up to that Loom. So I feel like there's there is a lot of back and forth with that work. We just finished quite a meaty, you know, I think it ended up being about a $6,000 job of CNC time for someone. They're another woodworker, but they're not experienced in CNC stuff. Thus, you know, they're outsourcing that to us. So there was quite a bit of back and forth in that as well, like, you know, getting on phone calls and going through details of like, cool, we're going to do it like this. Is that okay? Blah, 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 blah. A reasonably high value job, but yeah, still quite admin heavy. So I don't know what the answer to that is. Just don't do it. Yeah. Unless you can.
I mean, that's my take. I thought of last night. The first thing was another reality check was this is not something we should be doing. Yeah. Our business is best at making products. If I go back to eMyth, I feel like maybe in 2017 we had an unfair advantage of making unique router parts. I think the industry is caught up to whatever, especially in our local economy. Like, we are not the only people making 3D machine parts on routers anymore. Whereas that was like easier, but I haven't exceeded at making that efficient for us on our end to like quote jobs and all that, like we're talking about. But ultimately, it's like the majority of our income is now products, and I'm wasting, in my mind, a huge portion of my time entertaining work that we shouldn't take. And it's just so stupid that if I'm going to keep taking it, it needs to be basically automatic, or the analysis needs to be immediately automatic, so I can immediately say, like, I love that they talked about these tools should know all of your machines that do analysis and quoting for you, basically, software. They should know I have a YCM mill, a 4x8 router, a 3D printer, a laser cutter, and when the thing comes in, it automatically goes, well, if you did it on this machine, it would take 2 setups. If you did it on your 5-axis, it would take 1 setup, and you'd be this profitable. And you should just basically be able to like, okay, click that. And the dream scenario that kind of played out in my head was, from there, I say, all right, send that to my machine now, and it does the cam for me, and it makes G-code and posts it. You know, it's like, there's still a lot of questions there, and it's going to be a long time before that's the truth. But I think what I guess I was thinking about when you were talking about the time spent going back and forth, and how a lot of that conversation was about, and I want this too, as a buyer of services, I want instant quoting. I want to see how it affects the price. I don't mind talking to people and communicating about the job, but also, like, there's joking, like, if we had to call somebody every time you wanted to compile code to make a website or a tool for software, we would be nowhere with our software. And that's kind of what it feels like in the manufacturing world, is like, if you want to get a part made, you got to wait till Monday and call Steve, who's got the CNC machine, but a shitty website, you know?
I'm Steve.
And it's,
I'm your
I'm a little bit
now,
Steve too,
Steve.
you know? Like, I was proud of our state, but now I'm like, what the hell? Like, how I just feel negligent at this point that I don't have a better solution for myself to quote with.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what the implications would be of qualifying out being, I think we'll get there. To be like, I might sound like a doubter at this stage, but I think we'll get to this automatic point at some stage. I wonder in the interim, kind of, it's obviously going to be lots of manual steps to get there. But if your system, you're like PDX Jarvis is just taking in step files and basically bidding them automatically, how do you verify? How do you like qualify and get the good jobs versus the problematic jobs? Because I think there's a lot that happens when you're like when you are sorting it out and you're on the phone to the client, you can get some pretty big red flags at that point of like, I'm going to crank up the old, the dial on this one because I feel this is not going to pan out very well. But yeah, it will be interesting to see where it goes.
Frankly,
for sure.
I'm reminded of this is just one aspect of why I left architecture, other than I didn't like the business of it. But historically, there was this point in time when there was a divergence where architects were more well compensated and I don't know, I guess maybe this is egotistical from my education process, but they were more respected than engineers. This is like early 20th century kind of time, maybe a little bit before that even. And something happened where we switched and architects became less respected, less compensated. And part of that, in my mind, has always been because of the way some of it's like lobbying in a professional setting and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But it's similar to how I feel about the way that I feel and even maybe you've described, like the way this is going to sound terrible, but like give our time to win a job and not be compensated for any of that time often. Like if we win 40% of jobs, 60% of the time, I'm wasting my time not being compensated for it. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of that happens. There's a lot of that process where architects are not very well compensated compared to a lot of professions that need 6 years of education. And it's a similar thing because they care about the craft, or they're in this state where the industry just won't pay it. And I feel like that happens actually in routing, right? Like it's not something that can we're not getting $100,000 jobs and they just come in, like there's a lot of winning associated with it and time needed. And that's fair. I'm not like saying any of that's not warranted or friendly and humanistic, but it just seems similar to me and tough to like be profitable, honestly.
Yeah, for me, like I feel like the time we spend quoting is ultimately entirely up to us. Like we have to be able to tell what's going to be worth our while putting effort into from the outset, and whether that's like pre-qualification education that's on our website to ensure that we get better leads, or whether it's being able to very quickly identify a new lead and say, no, sorry, this isn't for us. Like I feel like there's a sweet spot with all the little factors that around that where you can get to a point where your conversion rate's much higher. I'm not saying I'm there, but I can see what the tools are. I can see the levers, and I played with some of them and can kind of see, okay, I can get my conversion rate over 50%. Great. If I put some more effort in, maybe I can get it even higher. I don't know. I think, at some point you just got to say it's part of it. And like, I think if your conversion rate was so high that you weren't wasting any time there, what would that mean? Like if you're winning pretty much everything you bid, you're probably too cheap.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what that would mean.
Right. Yeah, I guess there's a time when I felt like having a high conversion rate was great. And I feel like it's best somewhere in the 50 to 60% range for us, where that means we're getting at this point, I think I'm definitely on the boat of like, I want to win one job a month that's perfect, ideal, and the rest of the time we spend on making products and finding a way to more automate our qualification process, or I don't even know if it's automate, but just without being cold and harsh. I think that's the hardest part to this is like, how do you take some work but not close it off completely or scare away too many people that might be ideal clients?
Yeah,
it's an old conversation for us, but it's an interesting one.
Are you going to IMTS, Justin? When is it? And are you going?
Booked my stay.
You did?
I am going the 10th of September through 12th.
Oh, that's soon. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in 30 days.
Coming up fast.
So I just booked my might stay. I don't have a ton of time there, but it's just the way that it can work out with my family scenario and flights and not taking red eyes. And so, yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm kind of chatting with people that are going. And if you are going, what are you going to see? I'm curious if you have some thoughts, and I'd love to meet some people. I'm definitely going to the Within Tolerance Kern meetup event. I think it's on Wednesday, where Dylan hosts a meetup. He did it last year too. Just people get together and chat, I think. I don't know if there's more than just meeting up, but yeah.
What are you most interested in?
A lot to see. Well, I mentioned I want to look at 3D printing options. If there's other things I'm missing in terms of like lesser known manufacturers of printers or new technologies or something. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like in this conversation, right, we're talking about, I put a note, it's like, how do we automate router work? And I don't know that there's like a tool for that, but I'm curious to see. I feel like a lot of those kind of solutions are really large BSC, gantry crane, suction, vacuum, trolley table, robot-y things. And I'm curious if there's more like, I don't even know if it's like cobot, but just kind of ad hoc solutions in general, that like the ideal would be we have a robot that can be very easily programmed to like work with any of our machines. Like if I want it to take parts out of the printer, or load the mill and run it again, or some of these are dreams, and I would really like to see just a series of 5-axis machines that I've never really seen in person. I want to see the differences. We don't really have a need, but I just need to be exposed to a lot of things I've heard about.
Sweet.
It's my
awesome
short list of the moment.
Yeah. Very cool. I see we have some AMAs on the list that you've collated.
We did. I didn't expect we were going to have all this other stuff to talk about. And I was like, hey, do you have any questions for us for the show? So I got a few.
Yeah, let's go.
First one, Patrick, I'd love to hear the difference of similarities between the customer journey at PDX CNC versus Like Butter. What's the customer service experience, And I think you could take that a few ways, whether it's custom or product. Like we could compare each or one or the other.
Yeah. Do you talk to your customers? Your like job shop customers? Or you try and keep it pretty digital?
Yeah, it's mostly digital. So it's a lot of emails and try to basically be as expedient as possible, going from inquiry to quote and take the job and schedule it. It's a pretty simplified process. I think a lot more at this time about the experience of our product-based retail customers, because it's our focus, and something Ricky and I are just constantly trying to improve and iterate at, in terms of how's the packaging? Can it be better packaging? Can we ship it in this way? Can we make it easier to understand how to install this product with a better guide, or how do we show it better on the website? So we're kind of constantly evolving those kind of things, I think, and spending a lot more effort at that at this point. Maybe obvious based on earlier part of this podcast.
Well, that's so good. I wish I was in that spot. I'd love to be spending time improving our customer journey, rather than so much of my time in the moment is quoting custom work, and it's great custom work. It's not little parts that should be lathe parts. It's basically customized versions of our product, which is what we want in our custom workflow. But yeah, I think a lot of the focus of our customer journey is on that custom end, and it's pretty hands-on. We'll get an inquiry on our form, and I'll pretty often, depending on my read on the person, I'll jump to a text message exchange almost immediately, which I find has been successful in terms of getting quick engagement with people. And then, if appropriate, I'll try and get on the phone to them for a chat about what they want to do. Then we go to a quote and concept. I'll do a quick concept in Rhino, make a Loom video, send them a quote with a Loom video walking through the concept. And then if we win the job, then it's on to detailed drawings and production, stuff like that. But yeah, there is a lot of time, a lot of, like, it's kind of overly weighted for us at the moment at that sort of pitching, quoting part of the journey, for sure.
Yeah. What's your ratio of custom, I guess it's mostly kit parts probably, or your products versus off the shelf, ready to make or ready to ship?
Can't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
Half? 40, 60?
2/3,
20?
yeah, 2/3 customized stuff to 1/3 off the shelf. Although web sales have been so slow, I'd say the off the shelf stuff is well below 30% at the moment. Well below, yeah. 15, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 20% web sales at the moment.
Yeah. How's the configurator playing into all this? Is it
I had a
working well
configurator
for you?
sale yesterday, which is always exciting to see, but it's slow, and I just haven't, again, it's one of these things I would love to put time and energy into getting it better, but I haven't been doing that. Yeah. Too caught up in getting quotes out the door. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still in a also good state with having a new one that something's got to give, right? Like you can't be iterating every part of your business while you're having a newborn still. So
sure,
it's understandable.
Yeah, it is a certain stage of life. That's okay.
Yeah, that's good. Wonder if the incentive for people to, let's say, get a kit of parts set up isn't strong enough that they get it faster than to get it exactly how they want it, probably, right? They usually are happy to wait and pay more to get what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a...
That sucks.
I need a shelf tomorrow situation. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm quite happy to think about it for a while yet.
Yeah. Right.
Well, but the final thought on customer journey, I've had a lot of really positive feedback about my Loom videos, and also positive feedback on being a regional business that picks up the phone. I've had various people comment of like, wow, it's good to talk to a human being when they've called me out of the blue, got my number off the website. And I've picked up the phone and had a chat to them and been helpful and talked them through some stuff. And yeah, I'm so sick of email.
Yeah. I wasn't going to comment on like the last thing I want to do is talk on the phone, but I'm also tired of email. So I guess both. Very tired of email. That's another thing I feel like I'd love to just see way more automation in. Which I think is obviously coming. Yeah.
Dylan said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like soft jaws? And
yeah. Jem, how do you like soft jaws?
Is that the second half of his question, or is that your note?
No, that's his. That's his full comment. Because
And why did you say
I was
1?
asking him. I was lamenting / shyly asking him, so you're going to find this ridiculous, but like, how do you make soft jaws? I know how to, but also I was like, I don't know if are you adding tolerance at the outset? Do you do it after you cut it? And his answer was very simple. It was like, I cut it perfect world and then tolerance it with wear comp at the machine. And I was like, oh, all right. It's easy. So then, I don't know, he was just nice and helped me through a handful of frustrations of work holding. And I wouldn't say I hate soft jaws. What I, aside from what I said earlier, what I struggled mightily with was very stupidly, I knew this from cutting on a router too, as I put dog bones for the corners of this fairly deep part. Like I had to go almost the entire length of a 2-inch soft jaw deep. And it was pretty narrow. So like the, diameter to length of what I needed to get in there was pretty small. and the whole thing clamped together pretty small. And my drill, I closed the vise up to do this and had to drill, and two of the holes on each side basically hit each other. And so I just made an absolute disaster out of this soft jaw. I had to like hand file it back because every time I tried to mill it, it would chatter again. I was like, I am a child at this. Like, this is silly.
Horrible. Yeah. I don't think I've ever... No, I've made basic soft jaws for the CNC router. I've made plywood soft jaws, I'm sure, a few times. That's not really something that's in my wheelhouse. I've always liked the idea of them, but that's
I mean, right. They seem kind of improbable to me in a certain way, but I feel like this is one of the better parts of all my bitching about taking jobs and stuff is, and Ricky said this in the middle of it. He said, you know what's great about this is I feel like we have so much more capability now because you've bashed your head against this for a week, like you've figured out what sucks. And this is exactly how we got into making our own products in the first place was there's all these things that we're now good at or better at because we've done good enough for jobs. We always produce, good parts, but maybe we had to remake them 3 times for customers that now we're good at it. Like it's training yourself in this backwards way on the clock kind of thing. So
absolutely.
Now I feel completely different about soft jaws, and I know I'm really interested in like the Carve Smart idea because maybe we need to explain this. If you don't understand what a soft jaw is, it's basically just like when you cut a part and you need it to go into something again to remove the rest of the stock.
It's a negative.
You cut a negative into jaws or material, usually aluminum, and then when you close the vise up, wherever your work holding is, it makes a perfect fit so that you can cut the rest of the part. And I hadn't done it much. Anyway. Beep, boop. All right. Next, debris brooms. You magically receive 1,000 imperial feet to your shop. What do you do with it?
Jem's looking up how big that is. 92 square meters.
That sounds like nothing. I like the 1,000 square feet better.
I've seen photos of your shop custodian of debris brooms, and I can see why you're asking this question. It's beautifully tight and efficient looking, and I can imagine 90 square meters would mean a lot to you. We're wasting space at the moment, so my immediate answer to that would be I would sublet it out to someone and make some revenue.
Oh, God, that's really, I would love that idea. I wish I had that option.
Useless answer. But yeah,
it's an answer.
We've got more space than we need right now. That's all right.
Why not do that?
What about you? Oh, because I don't like having other people in my space.
Put some lasers down and don't let them go over the line.
Don't touch my tools.
That reminds me of I shared this shop with this other business who was less than reputable when I first got a shop, and they had some issues internally, personally, and I didn't know them that well when I first moved in, but I did some CNC work for them, and at one point, the owner of the other business tried to threaten me from letting me use the restroom that was in the shared space. And that he was going to trap me in my space with his truck so that I couldn't move stuff in and out.
What?
And I was like, I'm out of here. This is madness. Like there was never like any good reason for it. I just always was having like a terrible week and tried to blame things on me all the time. And
what a wonderful, what are you going to put?
If I get 1,000 square feet, that would give me another third of our shop roughly, which would be amazing. I mean, we need, what would be really nice is everything's tight. We have a very narrow, long shop, 75 feet deep and like 25 feet wide. I've always, ever since we moved here, I immediately clicked that I was like, oh, square shop is ideal. Like, I want a square shop. I want it to be, everything is kind of equidistant from, not like, oh, I have to walk to the end of the shop. And what that allows, I think, is better travel paths, like getting material places. My other dream and part of what I'm going to look at, hopefully, is some Onsrud routers. I really enjoy what they make, and they seem very high quality.
Yeah, they look
I've never
fantastic.
really seen many in person, so I'm going to see those. I think they have some for specifically metal at IMTS is what I saw. But I just kind of want to see one of those. And I mean, I think the dream machine would be a 5-axis Onsrud potentially. And those are enormous. They're like 12 feet tall or something like that at times. So
Yeah.
something like that. I would like a finish, both for finish area for potentially like powder coating and or
Cool.
spray finish for like metal or woods would be really nice. We don't have space for that. I would also add, if we had the money, like a 5-axis mill. I mean, my first question was going to be, do we also get 1,000 square feet worth of money
No.
to like fill it? Because I've got dreams for that.
S&J Korea. What is this question? Gem Tumblr? I don't have a Tumblr account anymore. Justin.
I might have typed that on my phone.
Transcribe this.
I don't know if you want to talk about this. It's that one, I think. Is that what they're called?
Oh,
Your
Timber.
Fanciful, which is obviously a dating app for people that like wood.
Timber, the dating app. Yes, Aston, thank you for pointing that out. I'm keeping a close eye on that one. Let's just say that. We'll come back to that.
And then the second part of that is just an increase of 3D printed housewares and our longevity. I am averse to anything that comes into human contact, especially have nothing to do with it being food related or water related if it's 3D printed. So I use them for things like I made a Dyson vacuum holder. Like I don't want, kids playing with it or like anything, food or water. So
Yeah, wow.
I use it at a lot of different weird places. Like I hold one of those Amazon devices that you can talk to. I don't want to trigger everybody's like in our bathroom with a little stand I printed, just stuff like that. And honestly, so some of those are from 2021 or 2022 and like they don't get touched, they don't get handled because they just sit there and they look perfect, great. Like I'm sure there's some thing that will break down faster with them, but it's really kind of shocking how long, evidenced by like some of our dust boot parts, like the printed parts don't usually have much of any problem. So that's my weird take on it.
So I've got some test prints in ABS that were printed over 10 years ago, kicking around in my office somewhere, and they look the same. They feel the same elasticity.
Right.
Yeah. They're not going anywhere.
Right. On 3D printer world, we used PETG, bamboo PETG for quite a long time for printing most of our products that use that. And they kind of out of nowhere discontinued their PETG basic, like with no warning. So that's delightful. We make our tool tags out of it, the dust boots.
Fun.
A lot of in-house stuff. And they didn't have an immediate replacement, but let's say 2 weeks after they discontinued it, they came out with what they call high flow PETG. I'm sure some of you know this already. The characteristics aren't, it's like they halved the benefits of PETG to PLA in terms of like things that are very engineer based, like elastic modulus stuff. But when it's explained in simple language, I'm like, I don't understand. Like basically the big perk here is it prints faster and it's less sticky. But we had kind of gotten through most of that and liked the qualities of what basic PETG is. So I was a little frustrated. We did a lot of test printing on boots and the first roll was trash. Like I think we're actually getting it replaced. It's like really bad, bubbly, spotty zit things, even if we dried the crap out of it. But we tried some orange, and I finally have time, I'll post a video of this thing I made. It's a almost full print volume duct Y for some exhaust vents. and at a PETG high flow, and it took 7.5 hours to print 450 milligrams. Grams? Is that what it is?
Grams.
450 grams of filament, milliliters of filament, and traditional speeds of printing PETG would have taken 12 hours, and it was 7.5, and it was damn near flawless. So
yeah, great.
There's definitely a place for it, and it's pretty impressive. I'm not sure if it's going to be what we'll use for some of our products, but interesting.
Cool. And final quick question here before we wrap up from
52.
Alex. Configurations.
It's not a question.
Please explain.
I joke. I believe Alex commented on a YouTube video of mine. I think. The names don't line up quite, but it seems similar. I think they're jumping back into Fusion and trying configurations and kind of exploring it for the first time, potentially. And I'd say I haven't explored it extensively since some of the early days, but I do know there's some more evolving factors coming. I did use it, kind of cool, for the first time on this messy mill project where when I was making soft jaws, I configured the jaw state and the parts that go into the jaw based on configurations, which doesn't quite line up like I'd like it to into setups. It doesn't, like, it kind of invalidates the setups between, like, if you have an op1, op2, and you're continuing the rest operation, it invalidates it when you change it. I think that should be fixed so it doesn't. But it was pretty cool to, like, that's always kind of tedious to, like, okay, what did I have checked on and off for this op2, and what's the jaw look like so I can properly, like, you know, have that set up? Do I have like a weird 1, 2, 3 block modeled in there? Like, and so it's nice to be able to, like, keep all that stuff aligned in a very, like, functional manner.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea of doing more with it, but I just haven't had a use for it. I guess the launch of configurations or the release of it, having waited for it for so many years with anticipation, and then it finally came out and the business was in a spot where we just didn't need it anymore. Like, I think pretty sure Alex and I have chatted specifically about, like, our old Fusion cabinet templates that we're both trying to develop, pre-configurations, and we've done barely any cabinet making since then, and so we've just used what we had on file and not bothered to develop new templates. But yeah, maybe one day we'll get back in there.
Yeah, I've done a few things. I mean, I have a new product I'm working on that it's nice to start into a new product and understand configurations enough to think about it when you're early in the project. And there's a couple different types of choking on an RX bar. I've configured different types of one part of it to show in the same model, and you could absolutely just model them and turn them on and off separately, but it is nice to just, like, have them be there based on, like, oh, if it's type A, show this, type B, show this. And I mean, you could do that with a million different aspects. I think it's got a long ways to go in terms of, like, its final state. So
yeah, okay.
It's fun to play with, though.
Well, I think that's time, ladies and gents.
It's time.
It's time.
Mm-hmm.
My final quick recommendation. I watched a long video last night that is so far removed from everything we've just chatted about, so I'm going to throw it in there as just a bonus off-topic recommendation. Andy Anderson is a Canadian skater, and there's an interview with him on Tony Hawk's podcast, which I've just discovered, and it's a really good interview. Oh. And I'm going to throw it in the mix as a recommendation. Nice. When you're finished with Carl Bass, go and listen to Andy Anderson, because he is just an awesome human.
Will do.
Yeah. The end.
Right. Nice. Well, we also need, like, one of these, I think.
Wap, 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 wap.
You froze.
You've been
I
freezing the whole
froze you with
time.
the audio.